Hi, everybody. My name's Patti Hagwood, and you hear me talking. I've been with Best Friends almost 17 years now. I was a Katrina transplant from New Orleans, and I met Best Friends in New Orleans following Katrina, and basically I said, "There's no way I'm going to live in the desert ever." And then I came to visit and went, "Wait a minute. This isn't the desert like I've read about in my little school books," and never looked back. And there was a point where this this area, very near and dear to me, was in my world for a bit. And one of the things that I remember most of all was how we began to reframe how we looked at the lives that we place here at Angel's Rest. From it's always going to be bittersweet, and sadness is always involved in saying goodbye. But it also became for us a celebration of life, and a celebration of the life that these animals either shared with us on a personal level, or from the sanctuary standpoint, where there's so many people involved in their lives to make it rich and wonderful that maybe they didn't have a home per se, but they had a home with us in our hearts, and we tried to give them the best possible life that we could. And I remember going through the what is now Quincy's at the Incontinental Suite, where we had a little cat named Scooter, and we weren't really creative with the names. He couldn't use his back end. But Scooter was, very lively, and he would just come over to people and scooch over. And I remember this lady looking at me, and she was really angry. And she was like, "Why are you keeping this cat alive? I don't understand it. This is cruel. It's awful." And I'm like, okay, do me a favor, and I want you to sit down here with this wand, and I want you to talk to Scooter. Well, then I was talking to someone else, and I came back, and she was streaming tears, and she goes, "Thank you for not killing Scooter. This is the best cat ever." Well, this cat, actually, he changed hearts and minds. He changed the minds of a lot of folks coming through wondering, why do you keep this animal alive? Because a lot of times we look at them from our own personal standpoint, but what we don't realize is they don't know that they have an issue. He eats, drinks, poops, peeps, goes to swat his friends, and plays with toys, and sleeps at night like every other cat. And he actually, I was trying to calculate how many people whose minds he absolutely changed, and it had to be in the tens of thousands, because of all the tours that went through that building every single day, year after year after year. So although we were sad to say goodbye to Scooter, we also celebrated an ambassador for why each individual life matters. And that to me is what this is about. I lost my sister back in 1977. I was 15 years old. I'm old. I was 15 years old, and she passed away. And I remember being really sad when that anniversary came around every year. And a friend of mine said, "Why don't you do something positive every year to commemorate her in memoriam?" And I was like, "Well, that's a great idea." And that's when I planted a tree over here with a little plaque with her name on it. And every year I plant a little pine tree or something, that can thrive out here. And it's wonderful to be able to, start taking a walk around and watching them grow. And it really gives me peace, a lot of peace. So, and that's just my personal experience. But it's more than that. It's more than, like, when you are here and you have that sense of peace and you have that sense of celebration of these lives, and the fact that we as people take this moment like we're taking right now to just honor all those lives before us. And how does that help us reframe the work that we do going forward, and how we help make each one of those lives a very memorable aspect of our own lives as we walk forward, right? So I'm a real Mary Oliver fan. And do you all know who Mary Oliver is? She's a poet, and she's one of my faves, and somehow I have a fly friend, which, you know, all bets are off when it comes to flies. No, could be like my Aunt Pat. Stop. No. So I want to read for you an opening poem today from Mary Oliver, and it's not a long one. Oh, Josh, you're wonderful. It's called Heavy. That time I thought I could not go any closer to grief without dying. I went closer and I did not die. Surely God had his hand in this, as well as friends. Still I was bent, and my laughter, as the poet said, was nowhere to be found. Then said my friend Daniel, brave even among the lions, it's not the weight you carry, but how you carry it. Books, bricks, grief, it's all in the way you embrace it, balance it, carry it. When you cannot and would not put it down. So I went practicing. Have you noticed? Have you heard the laughter that comes now and again out of my startled mouth? How I linger to admire the things of this world that are kind and maybe also troubled, rose in the wind, the sea geese on the steep waves, a love to which there is no reply.
Hello, everybody. My name's Josh. I'm the manager here at Angel's Rest. And at this point of the program, I will talk about some of the little guys that have passed away this month here on the sanctuary. In Dogtown, we lost Lakota, Crump, and Kirby. In Cat World, we lost Roswell, Lolita, Larissa, Grover, DJ, and Widge, Romania, and Toaster Strudel. In horses, we lost Aries. In pigs, Diesel and Panda. And in wild friends, we had lost Forrest the Jackrabbit, Ambassador, and Peep. In tributes, we had lost Snowy Dances with Wolves, Sugar, Sky Barker, Trixie, Charlie, and Miss Feisty. Now, Best Friends members have also sent in their cards for their loved ones. Sharon had lost Dorothy. Beth and Jack had lost Dexy. Sanu and Bob lost Fjord. And Stephanie had lost Winston, Gigi, and Lily. Here's a selection of stories that were also sent in. One of our loyal donors had sent this one in. Jack enjoyed walking off the leash in the field. Any type of food, but most of all, Jack loved when Larry loved on him while he was on his spot on the sofa. He was gentle with all he met. Jack was truly God on earth. His love and devotion for us is what we believe God has for us all. He will be terribly missed. Another member sent in a tribute to Gracie. My Gracie girl, she blessed our lives with a very sweet nature and her most sensitive soul. We are seniors, and Gracie was our last puppy. We had her sweetness and joy in our lives for 14 and a half years, and will always cherish her memory. She is missed with every fiber of our bodies. We are so sad right now, but feel enriched by her life and her love. She brought us joy, fun, and happiness into our home. She will never be forgotten and is forever in our hearts. This is from Carly. Bruno was the sweetest old man, adopted as a senior from best friends in Utah. We had 4 wonderful years together. He was perfect in every way and will be terribly missed.
Hi everyone, I'm Jess and I work in Dogtown. I'd like to talk about a few dogs who've passed this month. One is Lakota, who was a puppy here in Dogtown. I've had to say this way too often lately, but when people think of puppies, they think of fun and laughter and joy and things like that, and puppies very much are that, but they're also very delicate and fragile, and some of the most delicate and fragile animals we have at the sanctuary. Sometimes, despite our best efforts and our clinic's efforts, we still lose puppies, and unfortunately, while the rest of Lakota's littermates survived, he did not, and he passed away just this month from parvo. Another dog who passed away was Crump, and Crump was a long-term sanctuary resident, and I'd like to read something from his foster dad, James. We said goodbye to our big boy, Foster Crump, recently. His degenerative spinal arthritic condition had progressed to the point where he no longer had any function in his back legs, and his discomfort level was not manageable, so helping him cross was the best course of action. His 7-week stay with us was longer than expected, so I'm grateful for every extra wonderful day with him. Thank you to my wife for entrusting me as primary foster hospice care provider to yet another oversized, wobbly, back-end black dog. Thank you to his caregivers and friends at Dogtown for caring for him over the years, and thank you to his special friends Deb and Loopy for continuing to provide stroller rides, outings, fast food, and lots of love during his hospice stay. He was a good boy. I will miss his unmatched ability to claim whatever bed happened to draw his attention, regardless of size and fit. I will miss his happy dance when he heard the wet food can opening and his Hoover vacuum approach to eating. I will miss his stoic face that easily fell into a big, goofy grin. Most of all, I will just miss his calm, easygoing presence. Love you, buddy. And I also want to thank his foster dad, James, who took him home for the last time he had here and really enriched his life even more than we had ever hoped. Another dog that passed this month was Kirby, who I had the privilege of welcoming to Dogtown a few years ago when I worked in admissions. He came to us from our lifesaving center in Los Angeles. Kirby needed to be an only dog. It wasn't very difficult to meet, but sometimes he could get quite exuberant with new people. I loved taking care of him in admissions. He later moved to our single dog housing known as the Lodges. He lived at Deja's Lodges. And here is what his most recent caregiver, Ben, had to say. Kirby was a friendly, sweet soul who liked everyone he met. He was a curious fellow and immersed himself in his walks. He was energetic, affectionate, and loving. Even towards the end, he still had that bouncy, vibrant spark. He had a mild obsession over balls, and he loved his car rides with his good friend Susan. Sometimes she would get him burgers, which were the best. He loved a good splash, and Susan and Dan, volunteers of ours that live locally here, took him to the reservoir the day before he crossed, where he had a wonderful time. Unfortunately, Kirby had cancer, and the kindest thing we could do was to help him cross with dignity, but he was a wonderful boy who is very missed. Another dog I'd like to mention, Josh mentioned in the tributes a dog named Sky Barker, who came to us about 5 years ago as Luke Sky Barker from our Los Angeles Lifesaving Center. I was privileged to meet him upon his arrival and be his caregiver for several years before he went to what was a hospice foster home 2 years ago and then later turned into an adoption. So he lived for 2 amazing years in his hospice foster and adoptive home with a staff member here in Kanab. So Sky Barker was a small but mighty miniature pincher mix of sorts. And once he knew you, he loved you forever, and you could do whatever you wanted, medically speaking, which was great when we found out he had heart condition. But he was picky with some of his friends. He loved other dogs. He had the best helicopter tail I've ever seen, and I've seen a lot of tail wags. And I had the privilege that he was also somewhat my neighbor for the last 2 years, so I got to see him pretty often. But he was a great dog who loved toys, didn't love walks very much. He loved to snuggle with people. He loved toys, and he enjoyed the presence of other dogs a lot as well. So I just want to thank his mom for taking him home and giving him a wonderful life for what we feared was a short time in the beginning and really extended to 2 years of amazing life in a home. And it's definitely a lot quieter at her house now because he welcomed everyone with a very loud bark. Lastly, I just want to take a minute and honor and I want to honor and remember a very good friend and volunteer here in Dogtown, Bill Splitter, who passed away just recently. To know Bill was to love him. He made everyone smile. He greeted every volunteer in Dogtown by holding the door and just saying good morning. It made a difference in a lot of people's days, just doing a simple thing like that. But he also made a huge difference in a lot of dogs' lives as well, and did countless transports, volunteer hours. He was admissions right-hand man for many years. We greatly miss him. And in honor of Bill, do something kind for animals in his honor. Thanks.
Hi, my name's Lauren and I work at Wild Friends. And we lost one of our ambassador animals this month. His name is Forrest. He was our jackrabbit. So the special thing about Forrest was that he came to us in 2013. And jackrabbits are very high stress animals. They do not have long lifespans. Even in captivity, they can only live up to 2 to 3 years. I think the longest living one was 5 years. We had Forrest for 9 years. So he was an old boy, but he was very, very special to us. He came in as a baby and he was imprinted already. Whoever found him had kept him for a little bit, and so he loved people. And he also had some neurological issues, and we're not really sure what caused that, if he had head trauma or was fed the wrong formula, but he was not a functioning jackrabbit. So he thought he was a person, and the reason that he lived so long is because he had no fear response. And since he thought he was people, he would play with us, and he always wanted to be around us. And at Wild Friends, we don't have many animals we can snuggle, so this was a big loss for us. He was our one animal we could go hug on at any time, and he loved it. So this picture that I included in the middle, he loved Apple so much that you could do whatever you wanted to him. Any medical procedure you needed to perform, you could do it without anesthesia. He would just eat his apple. And this is his main caregiver, Ren, and just him being a little ham. So he was a really good boy, and he will be greatly missed at Wild Friends. And I will also talk about Peep, who we just buried the other day. So I didn't have time to prepare something for her, but she was also very, very special to us. She was a scissorbill chicken to the point where she could not eat on her own, and we kept her alive for as long as we could by tube feeding her. And she had more personality in one little feather than I think a lot of people have. Mm-hmm. She was just the goofiest little bird. And she was very imprinted to us, would just ride around on our shoulders like a parrot. And the reason she was named Peep was because she never stopped peeping. So she will be greatly missed, and Wild Friends is a lot more quiet without her and a lot less snuggly without him. So we do miss them.
Hello, I'm Byron. I'm one of the caretakers here at Angel's Rest, and I have a short reading I'd like to give. Nevermore will the wind cherish you again. Nevermore will the rain. Nevermore shall we find you bright in the snow and wind. The snow is melted, the snow is gone, and you are flown. Like a bird out of our hand, like a light out of our heart, you are gone. We take a quick moment of silence for all that the animals that have passed here at the sanctuary, and also our personal animals that mean so much to us.
I'm so glad that you brought up Mr. Bill. I was going to, because I don't recall anyone in our lives here who was such a presence that nothing was ever impossible. You know, it'd be like, Bill, we got like 25 dogs that need to wait, let me get my stuff together. I mean, he was ready to go. He had an amazing truck with a back on it that had Road Warrior animal transport. And just, I would pop in on puppies, Bill's there. It's like we knew we could leave the place to him because he would take care of the volunteers that were coming in. He would take care of everybody who showed up, and he embraced this sanctuary like it was his own, and he was a part of our family. And I know, Jess, you guys in Dogtown, there's a big hole in your hearts where Bill used to take up space. And I notice every time we talk about Bill, the chimes get louder. And I have no doubt that he is now roaming freely through here and petting every puppy on his head, because that's just who he was. So in close today, I have another Mary Oliver poem. This is Mary Oliver theme today for me to you, because I just adore her. And this is called Wild Geese. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of rain are moving across the landscape, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things. Thank you all so much for coming out. This means the world to us, and I love that we're in this environment. And you have the ravens cutting up back there, and the chimes, and this beautiful little breeze we're getting. And thanks for sharing your stories of the animals that touch your lives. I don't know if folks talk to you about our caregivers as much as we talk about them, but we admire the work you do. Rain or shine, hot or cold, day in, day out, you're the ones that make these animals feel at home. So thank you. And thank you all for coming out. We appreciate you. Take care.